Police and Child Protective Services are scrambling to explain why multiple men who sexually abused a 10-year-old girl remain free tonight, even though they know who they are.
CBS 2 investigator Dave Savini reveals how the system failed to protect the little girl despite years of warnings and calls for help.
Beyond the fencing, up on the top floor of the Grand Motel, is room 324.
We have no idea what type of ugly things he did to her in that room.
A 10-year-old girl, not even out of elementary school yet, was taken here by a 47-year-old man from her neighborhood and sexually exploited.
Who takes a little girl like that to a motel?
A dog, a predator, a very, very sick person.
Hello? We went to the motel trying to find answers.
I'm from Channel 2.
No one would talk about it, but the CBS 2 investigators obtained police records showing motel staff called 911 and told officers the man's name and date he checked in with her. It's been 4 months since it happened and still no arrest.
Why wasn't he locked up? That needs to be answered. Why did they not lock that man up?
Brenda Myers-Powell was appointed to the U.S. Advisory Council on Human Trafficking last year. She represents Illinois.
What does it do to you to hear cases like this?
It just made me sick.
Police reports reveal for nearly half the little girl's life, from age 7 to 10, she was sexually assaulted by at least 5 different men, including men in their 40s and 50s. The Department of Children and Family Services was alerted to these and other abuses dating back to 2016. Numerous reports called into the abuse hotline, including calls from her school. Despite all this, the little girl was never placed in protective custody. Instead, the abuse continued until she was finally found at this motel in October.
Is this the kind of human tragedy that you would bring to this committee and say, we need to look at why this happened to this little girl?
Yes, it is. And I intend to.
DCFS refused to say anything about the pattern of abuse this child endured. But through police reports we obtained through a public records request, we were able to piece together a tale of systemic failure that let her down. How none of her abusers were ever charged, and how Child Protective Services failed to get her the help she needed to escape a world of horrifying child exploitation. In fact, just days before she ended up at this motel, police had another one of her alleged abusers in their grasp. He too is accused of taking her to a motel. He too was also never arrested. All of the men who have allegedly abused her have never even been arrested.
Nope.
Yet she remained in that environment.
Yeah, this whole time.
Cook County Public Guardian Charles Goldberg has spent 30 years working to protect abused children. It is his job to challenge DCFS when they fail.
I've seen a lot. This has to be one of the very worst cases. It's disgusting.
He confirms it wasn't until workers at the Grand Motel called 911 last October that DCFS finally went before a Cook County judge to get approval to move the girl into the custody of a state-funded protective care program.
DCFS commonly leaves kids in very dangerous situations where they continue to be abused instead of bringing cases to court and rescuing children. This case illustrates that.
And he says because she didn't get help sooner when the abuse first started, things got drastically worse.
And so now a judge is really mad at DCFS, A, for not doing anything for 4 years, but B, because DCFS says they have nowhere to place her because her emotional problems are so advanced.
DCFS ended up placing her in a psychiatric hospital in December. By mid-January, she was finally cleared to be released to a residential care facility. It's now been more than a month since she should have been transferred. Instead, she still remains locked up inside a psychiatric ward.
This girl has been in a locked psychiatric hospital for a month after she's been ready for discharge because DCFS has nowhere to place her, a long-standing problem.
What kind of life do children like her live in these psychiatric facilities?
It's horrible. You're locked up indoors all day. They get about 1 hour of outdoor recreation every day. They lose schooling.
And while she remains locked up, her abusers remain free.
And when investigators from DCFS or the police department don't do anything to the offenders, that tells the little girl or person who's being abused that
says I'm the garbage that the men who abused me said I was. That says that I don't matter. And the world just showed me I don't matter because I'm locked in a box.
Just yesterday, DCFS admitted in court they couldn't even find their own case report showing what, if anything, they did to help this child back when she was first assaulted at the age of 7. We've also learned when police found her at the Grand Motel back in October, they simply took her home instead of a hospital to be examined. Because of our investigation, CPD promises a thorough review into how their own department handled the abuse cases involving this child. Dave Savini, CBS 2 Investigators.